Welcome back to the Keep Going podcast with Vin Kennedy. I'm your host, Vin Kennedy. Today we have a special guest. This is Michael. What if you want to do a brief intro on yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Michael Burton. Um, Last year I did 32 70.3 Ironmans in 32 days. And I am in training at this moment in time to run 100K a day for 55 days.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for people, I do now know what it is, but for people that don't know what 100K is, how far is that?
It's like 60 miles, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's
roughly.
yeah,
Yeah, 60 miles,
it's
yeah.
crazy. So we actually met in New York City at a run club and just kind of clicked right away off of communication. But and then the more I heard about like the things you've done, the things you have going on, the things you were planning, just like-minded people really click.
Yeah, so like I suppose I stopped drinking. It's now coming up on like 4.5 months, 5 months ago. Just like like cold turkey. It was just like went out one night, wasn't happy with my behavior. I was like, right, okay, I'm just like nipping this in the bud. I'm gonna stop drinking. It's not like I'm never gonna drink again, but I was like, I'm gonna stop drinking. And then I started going to like socializing in like a completely different way. Started going to run clubs. And one of the run clubs I went to here in London recommended to go to Marcus's run club in New York while I was there on holidays. I met all you guys, and it's just like crazy how this kind of world works, I suppose.
It really is. It really is. And so what was like, if you don't mind going into like, what was like the reasoning? You mentioned like your behavior, but like, what do you think drinking was holding you back from?
Yeah, so like I was recently on a podcast, and it's something that I've been doing a lot of thinking on myself, which is that since I was, I'm gonna say like 15, 16 years old, I have not gone a prolonged period of time, so more than 4 weeks without having some sort of alcoholic beverage. Now that's just like an Irish thing. Like we start drinking early, we're like 15, 16, like we're drinking. Um, and in that whole period of time, I've not like no more than a month have I gone without having a drink. Um, and even when I was like going up for like the challenge, like the 32 challenge, like I didn't stop drinking in the run up to that. Any Ironmans that I've done, I didn't stop drinking. Um, and I think in like the back of my head, I was like giving myself like the out, like it's like the excuse that if I didn't succeed, oh, well, I was like out, still out partying. Like I was still out, I was still drinking, I was still having fun. That's why I didn't, succeed. But like slowly but surely, like the more that you achieve things when you're giving yourself the out of like potentially, if I do fail, I have like a reason for failing. Um, Eventually I just got to the stage where I was just like, right, like I can actually achieve some seriously phenomenal things if I just stop dicking around. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty much the catalyst. And like I suppose the behavior on the night was that that particular night was just how I was behaved towards a friend of mine. And I heard about it like a kind of week later. Someone was like, "Oh man, you were like pretty rude to my friend," and I was like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't like that guy. I don't want to wake up on a Saturday and a Sunday morning like hungover, anxiety, annoyed at myself from the night before. So I'm just like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah. No, it's such a hard thing to face because you touched on it. It's like you get that distraction. And like I did that forever too. And like I didn't have to actually face the person that I would see in the mirror. And it was
Yeah.
just such a like it was an escape. And that's what all of it is. And you'll kind of I think it's tough, especially now with technology, to like fully escape all of the distractions. But when you're doing these types of things, especially physical, getting yourself outside for especially endurance for multiple hours,
Hmm.
you have to face your mind. Like you have no other chance. You have nowhere else to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, that's it. And like even when I started running, I used to run with music. I don't know if you run with music or not, but I just don't run with, I can't run with music anymore because like running has now become like my pretty much like my meditation.
Yeah. So I do, but it's like almost not always, most of the time though, but it's one of those things where sometimes I don't even realize what song's on. Like exactly.
Yeah.
You go inside your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that a lot. But even to go back to your point there, it's like the escapism, like alcohol was like pretty much alcohol and drugs. Like I was like a hard drug user, like not like just like smoking weed. Like I started smoking weed when I was quite young, and then it moved into like heavy stuff. So like pills, like MDMA, like cocaine. And I used that for like quite a large period of time between like the ages of like 18 to like 23. And then COVID came along, and COVID was like the catalyst for me to like turn things around in a major way. Um, and it's strange because obviously some people had like really shit times during COVID. Like some people really struggled, like it was really, really bad, and some people's mental health like really deteriorated. Uh, my mental health couldn't have been any lower when COVID hit. Like any lower at all. I was like 120 something kilos. I was still smoking weed pretty much every day. I was smoking cigarettes, like 15, like 10, 15 cigarettes probably. Boxes of cigarettes on nights out. I was still drinking a couple of times a week. When it got to the weekend, like I was still using hard drugs. And there was no going out. There was nothing to do. People started doing, I don't know if you had this in the States, but we had these like 5K nominations because we could only go 5K from our house. You could only be in that radius. So people started running 5K and nominating other people to run 5K. And then we just started doing that, and that just became like a thing. It was like a snowball.
That's so interesting. Yeah, no, we didn't have that. We had a lot of people resorted to, personally, I resorted to like just working out video games. And then
Yeah.
even outside of that, people just resorted to Zoom, and just Zooming
Yeah.
with friends. And people were Zooming with friends and drinking. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
like a lot of it went. Yeah.
Yeah. We had that too. Like we had like people doing like Zoom like quizzes, like where you'd be like quizzing people, like doing a quiz and someone would host it and everything. It was crazy.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because I personally had the opposite experience with COVID. I think COVID was the start of all of stealth growth for me, and it really gave me nothing but time to really harp on the things that I wanted to progress in, which was mainly physical transformations to start, but it definitely led to what later came as a mental transformation. But that summer after COVID, I was an absolute animal in every way imaginable, just going out, like just partying, doing things I shouldn't have been. I was in a similar boat. Like it wasn't just alcohol, and I've never even actually said that on my
Yeah.
podcast, but like it is what it is. And like I was just doing things. I was in a new career that was involved with partying, and basically September rolled around and I was like, this ends. Like I basically told myself, like, you have this summer to go nuts. And then September came, went sober, and I really haven't looked back.
Yeah, it's nuts. And I was actually like I literally just came on a walk like back from me and Ems just went on a walk. She was like what's your, because we have a podcast and we were talking about this like the other day, and she's like, what is like how do you feel about alcohol? And it's like such a strange one for me. It's like I don't think I want to put the parameter on myself that I'm gonna be like sober for the rest of my life. Um because like let's say we went to the south of Italy, or we went to like I don't know, France, and like there's like these really nice wines and we're having like a really nice meal. Like do am I going to stop myself from enjoying like a glass of wine? I don't think that's also really, I don't know, like fair is the word I'm going to use. I don't know if that's the best word to use right now, but I also don't think that that's like the right way to live life either. Like there has to be two sides to the coin where like you can kind of meet yourself in the middle. I don't need to go out and drink a bottle of vodka anymore. Like if there's something or a place there that I'm at, or an event that I'm at where, you know, it makes sense for me to have a drink, or I feel in that moment that I would like to have a drink, then I will. But at this moment in time, like I just can't see that happening. And maybe it will happen. I don't know. Like, but yeah, I'm not saying that I'm never gonna drink again, but I am saying that it's probably, well, it is. It's a lot less than what it used to be, I suppose.
Right. And I think the why behind it has definitely changed for both of us. And I think that's really
Yeah.
like the driving force. And there's a book called Die with Zero. It's about exactly what you're talking about. It's living in that delayed gratification, but also experiencing, like experience experiences. So what it is like we work out because we know that's good for our fitness, our health, that'll keep us living longer. But at the same time, you go to a birthday party and you're allowed to have a slice of cake because you're in an experience with people, like enjoying an environment, enjoying a thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
it's that back and forth, and it's a step further that I always think about, and I've mentioned this before, is in September, actually, I go to Italy with my mom, and I haven't drank in like a year now. Probably won't drink in Italy, but sometimes I could be like crazy with my diet and like really locked in. And it's one of those where it's like, I'm gonna be in Italy, I need to eat the food. And then even getting to Italy, it's like the financial almost stressor that we put on ourselves. Like, obviously, it's an expensive trip, but it's worth it now because my mom's, just say we go in 10 years. My mom's now 10 years older. It's half the experience it would be because she could do less walking. She could experience the experience less. Therefore, our
yeah,
experience together is diminished because we put it on hold. And it's a lot
yeah,
of that. It's if you just live in delayed gratification, you'll never actually experience.
yeah. It's like a fine line. It's like a tightrope. It's a bit
Yeah,
crazy. But
it
it's
is.
it's something that I'm like kind of dealing with. There's a few things that are like very consciously on my mind at the moment that I'm like trying to like work through. I make this like comparison quite a lot to like life in general, but like it's gonna probably sound a little bit nuts, but like I think if you think of life as kind of like an onion, right? So like if you get an onion, you take away the first layer, right? That layer is like fresh and it makes you cry and it doesn't feel good and you will like want to push it away. But like you leave that onion out in the air for like 2 days, 3 days, it like mellows out and you can kind of like, you can pick it up, you can do whatever it is. And like I feel like life is like a layer. You kind of like peel back a layer and you deal with whatever's on that layer. For example, like at the moment I'm dealing with like drink and I'm dealing with like fixing my relationship with my stepfather and I'm dealing with all that stuff now. But like 3 years down the line, I might pull back another layer and it might be something completely different. And it's like this constant movement through life where you're like peeling back layers, you're like, okay, I need to deal with that issue. And then I kind of deal with that issue and then it's like, okay, I can pull back another layer. And it's like you're constantly moving through life, like peeling back these layers, sorting out those issues, whatever those issues may be. Like for example, like when I met Emily, which was like the guts of a year and a half ago, I talked to her on like our first or second date about how I felt like really like me. I felt like really happy to be able to be the person who I wanted to be. But like a year and a half on from that, I look back at that scenario of me back then, and I don't think that in that moment I was as much me as I am now. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
I'm slowly moving towards actually becoming the person that I feel I truly need to become, I suppose.
Absolutely. I love the onion analogy. And something I think of, and I have two things. One thing I think of when that pops up is it's almost you're always going to have layers to peel back, right? So it's not
Mm.
and it's like chasing happiness. You don't want a life that has no problems. You will never get that. What you need is the man that can handle any problem that comes. And that's just where I've been personally. And it's not creating happiness, it's creating peace within yourself because then
Yeah.
you can manage situations. And something also to the point is Matthew McConaughey says it, and they asked him who his role model was, and he said it's me in 10 years. And it's someone you'll never actually obtain, but you'll always strive to work towards. It gives you direction and it gives you the person to be. But again, and to even go back to your point where it's like I cringe at the things I said a year ago. And it's like I also felt like, oh my God, like this is who I'm gonna be for the rest of my life. And that's the beauty of it though. It's the never evolving thing. And like when you're in the moment though, you are that person and you are like your authentic self. And it's accepting that and knowing that you're probably gonna be a little different tomorrow and being okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah,
it's it,
it's a bit crazy. Like I do think
yeah.
about that stuff a lot. Even like I suppose, like, okay, so like 3 years ago, I would have said to myself, I have the best friends in the world. I don't need any more friends. I was so closed off to like actually make a new connection. But now I'm at a stage where I'm like, I've stopped drinking. My friends still drink. I'm interested in doing all this other stuff that they're not interested in. You grow up with these people who become like your friends, and my friends are always going to be my friends. They've always got my back. I've always got their back. But our paths of what we're actually interested in are like very, very different. And perhaps if I was to meet those people today, maybe I wouldn't be friends with them, but I am friends with them, and that's totally cool. But I also need to like build connection with people who are also interested in the stuff that I'm interested in, because that's really, really important for me to be able to become the person who I wish to become. Do you know, like, it's like
Absolutely.
that whole thing as well.
I think this is all it's all part of like the self-growth stuff. And this is things that I actively deal with. And personally, I think I slightly messed up in that situation. And I'm not even sure I've ever vocalized this on the podcast, though I talk about it all the time. I think I could and should have done a better job at fostering at keeping those relationships because I did have a lot of relationships with a lot of friends that like I go tell them I'm going around 100 miles and they're like, you're out of your fucking mind, which is like completely fair. It is. It's fucking
Yeah,
crazy. I'm
yeah,
well aware. Doing doing 30 Ironman, half Ironmans in a row is insane, but this is what we want to do. And like you said, it's having the wherewithal and maturity to know these people aren't going to understand exactly what you're doing, but that doesn't make them bad. Like they're just on a different path right now, and that's okay. And they're on their
yeah.
path, and I'm on my path, and it doesn't have to make sense to either one. But to hold that relationship together takes effort on both ends.
And the other thing about that is like, if you don't give them the chance to if you don't give them the chance like to make the decision by yourself, if you just decide, okay, they're not interested in what I'm interested in, so I'm just going to like remove myself from that situation. But if you don't give them the chance to like maybe support you or show up and like you might be running 100 miles and they'll be like, yeah, you're absolutely fucking nuts, but I'll sit there and eat pizza with you at 2 in the morning. If you don't give them that opportunity to be that friend, then you're kind of just removing it for yourself. So my whole thing is like, I'm going to do whatever it is that I want to do. And there's going to be people that come into my life, um, like even like yourself, like there's absolutely 100% chance that either you're going to be doing another 100-mile race and I'm going to get over there and support, or even something bigger, or vice versa, right? That's like guaranteed at some stage in my life, right? So that's cool. But like, my friends might never want to do any of that sort of stuff. They might never want to do anything, but they might want to drive around or cycle a bike beside me, and that's also cool. And they have the opportunity to do that if they want.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. And something that kind of keeps me very grounded in that is knowing that like everyone's always changing. That's inevitable. I'm the one making the drastic change in the moments. And that's not on them. That's on me. So therefore
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
my responsibility to keep those relationships because I'm the one throwing myself this crazy shit right now. Though they're
yeah, yeah,
definitely changing in their own ways in their own areas. Like I'm the one in this arena. So it falls on like me for sure.
yeah,
Um
100%,
and
hundred
something I really
percent.
want to touch on was just mental health because I've personally had a lot of bouts with it in the past and I have a lot on that topic as well. And I heard you mention on a podcast some stuff about it as well. If you want to just kind of touch on that.
Yeah. So like, I suppose it's actually a point that you made earlier on, which was around kind of like life isn't linear. And like, you made a correlation to fitness, right? And yeah, like fitness is like so not linear. Like you're gonna have like, it's have you ever heard that thing of the thirds? Like a third of the time you're gonna feel great, a third of the time you're gonna feel bang average, a third of the time you're gonna feel absolutely shit. Um, but like your mental, and I don't actually like the concept of mental health. I don't like that phrasing of what it is. I prefer mental fitness, because mental health makes it seem as like, oh, you're in good health or you're in bad health. I either have good mental health or I have bad mental health. You're like, no, you have mental fitness. And mental fitness kind of links in with resilience and all these other things. And I suppose when I had really bad mental fitness was when I was overweight, hated the job that I worked in, had no connection with people on a deep level, really, apart from like my friends, but I wasn't opening up to them about my issues. I was drinking, I was using drugs, and I felt lost. You add exercise to that then at the beginning of COVID, you add clean eating, the fact that I actually lost my job, which meant I didn't have to do that job anymore. I got to move back home to Ireland from London, reconnect with nature. All these things helped me start building up my mental fitness, like step by step, brick by brick, adding little things that help with my mental fitness. Um, and then eventually you just become fitter, and then you'll have a bout of like bad fitness where you kind of go off the rails, or you can't exercise for some reason, or you haven't been eating clean. Um but what I've found over the last few years, and like, bear in mind, when I was like 23 at the beginning of COVID, 23, 24, I would go to bed wishing that I wouldn't wake up. Because when I was 18, I tried to take my life. 18, 19, I tried to take my life on a number of occasions. And I couldn't bring myself to that stage again. I wasn't in that darker hole, but I would literally go to sleep being like, it would be so much better if I just didn't wake up tomorrow. Like, that's how, like, I was just like, I don't want to be here. This is absolutely shit. Um, but what I've found is that I have really good days and I have some bad days. But the time in which I have that is bad is significantly reduced where I am now. And the distance between my bad days is getting bigger and bigger and bigger the longer that I'm doing what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, like, I think we really need to look at it from a different aspect as to health. That would be my take on mental health.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of mental fitness and it makes so much sense. And it's because that's something you could build, right? It's not, like you said, it's not linear. It's not one way or the other. It's something that
Yeah,
everybody deals with highs and lows, regardless of where you're at or what you're doing. And
yeah,
I definitely want to ask, like, if you don't mind going into it, when you were 18, like, what was kind of circulating then? What was really like, what was your, I guess, what was the cause, do you think?
yeah. So there's a few things. So like, as so I've been to therapy about this now, so I'm pretty like comfortable as to what I know exactly what the pinpoint is. Um, and if you go back to me being a child, so when I was 2 or 3, my biological dad left this scenario, and there's like loads of studies now that talk about, those are like these formative years where a kid not might not remember exactly what happens, but they kind of do remember, in some aspect or some way. So that was obviously something that happened. Then when I was 8 years old, my grandfather passed away. To cancer, and I lived in the same house as my grandparents. They pretty much brought me up. My mum was like a single mom. She was working loads of jobs, so I spent lots of time with my grandparents. So he passed away when I was 8. Um, then when I was about 10 or 11, my biological dad was kind of back in the scene. I was supposed to get picked up from school. Never arrived. Turned out like a month later, we found out that he'd moved to a completely different country. Never told us that he was going. When I was 12, my grandparents of my stepfather, who I was really, really close with, were in a horrific car accident. They both passed away. And my dad, or I call him dad, my stepdad, um, went through like a serious bout of depression where he became a recluse. He started drinking all the time. And me and him just like had a really bad relationship because I was looking at him going, he should be doing XYZ. And he was looking at me being like, he should be doing XYZ and not be giving me trouble. Like, I'm clearly having a shit time. Um, and all those little things in life, well, this is what my therapist said, was like, they're all losses. And kids can't actually distinguish the difference between somebody dying, somebody walking away. They're all lost to a kid. So it's like this buildup of not feeling good enough. People always walk out on me. People don't love me. like all this sort of stuff, and it just like snowballed and snowballed and snowballed into just when I was 17, I kind of stopped playing sports, and more like sport was my release. It was something I was really good at. It was something I did all the time. I completely stopped doing it. Also, at about 17, 18, we leave school over here, which means I lost all structure in my life. I like for years I got up at the same time, I ate at the same time, I'd exercise at the same time, all that sort of stuff. You lose your routine, you lose something you love in sport that gives you that release, and then you're also dealing with all these battles in your head of like I'm not good enough, nobody loves me, no one wants me around here, like all that sort of stuff, and it just all came to a head at 18. And there's also the fact that I put on such a show for everyone around me. Like I was the life of the party. I was the biggest. I'm like 6 foot something. Like I'm a big guy. I was the biggest person around. I was the loudest. I drank the most. I did the stupidest stuff. I was a class clown. Like all that. And then I was like, I can't keep doing this anymore. I feel like absolute crap. And yeah, it just all came to a head when I was like 18.
How did you kind of combat that? Like, how did you come back from that?
Um, I didn't really. So, like, I tried to take my life a few days after my birthday, actually, my 19th birthday, I think it was. And then didn't really say anything to anybody about it, like friends or anything like that. Told my mum kind of a bit later on, I think that month. But then I was just going out partying all the time, but I was also working, and I was working two jobs because I dropped out of university or college, whatever you want to call it. And I was just like working and working and working. But all my friends were going out partying during the week because they were in uni and they were in college. So I would go out partying with them, but I'd be in work in the morning. So I'd just be taking ibuprofens or what I don't know what the equivalent of them is over in the States. I think it begins with A.
Ibuprofen,
Um,
Advil. Yeah.
Advil, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, actually, one of my friends like used to come back from America and he had like things of Advil. I just take the tub of Advil. I was like taking maybe 10, 11, 12, 13 of them a day. And just to get me through the day so I could like function. And that created like this really bad stomach ulcer, which popped. I had internal bleeding Christmas morning that year, rushed to hospital, had like pretty much like severe internal bleeding, probably should have died. And I was in there for like a month, and I came out and I went on a bender for like 5 days, ended up getting rushed back to hospital. And after that, it was just kind of like this wave of like good spells, bad spells, good spells, bad spells. Didn't really manage to get anything like move forward in any sort of way until COVID hit, really. It was just like a long kind of um a long road.
And what's like advice you would give to that younger version of yourself, like that 18-year-old version of yourself, the man you are today? Like, what is something that you would say to that kid?
So I would have said to talk to people about it, whether that's friends or like go to see professional help. I found more comfort in talking to friends about it because then it kind of opened the floodgates for me to actually be able to go and talk about it properly. And again, it's like peeling back the onion. Like I went and talked to a therapist then, and it was only like dealt with those certain issues, and now we've got on to another one. And it's like, okay, slowly but surely you get to like fix them and like sort them out. And now I'm at a stage now where I like have a good idea of exactly what everything is, and I feel pretty comfortable talking about it, and I kind of understand it a bit more, and I can give myself a bit of love. Like I can love myself for that. I can stop being so hard on myself about it. When I was like 18, I was like so hard. I was like, why do I feel this way? Da, 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 like all this sort of stuff, like just being so cruel to myself. Whereas now I can just give myself compassion, empathy, and I think that's it. It's like a problem shared is a problem half. Now that sounds corny as hell, but it's so true. You know, if
It is.
you just need to reach out to somebody in your life, and they're more than likely going to help you. Like
Yeah,
realistically, and if they don't, then they're probably not worth being in your life. Do you know what I mean?
absolutely.
Um, So yeah, I think that would be my one bit of advice. And exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
exercise is huge.
I think the most dangerous thing we could do, and I've done it a few times in my life, is like put yourself on this island that no one understands you, because almost anybody you talk to can relate in some sort of way. And even with your story there, I was in the same boat, and I'm sure I've even heard something about it psychologically, where I won class clown too. I won class clown while I was on depression pills. So like, what
Yeah,
does that tell you? The loudest person in the room is generally hurting the most. Like, you
yeah,
need to
yeah,
put on
yeah,
this show for everybody else, because everything going on inside is just absolute turmoil, and you are struggling. Like, it's really a sign of I need help when you are being that person. Mm.
yeah.
And yeah,
Can I ask you a question on that? It's like because
absolutely.
I was on pills and stuff like that. I don't know if you've read the book Lost Connection. I've like read bits of it. Emily put me onto it. Um, but I I've read this book and I kind of understand it now. But I just decided that I was going to come off them because, and like I understand some people need medication. They're like they just need it for whatever problems that they have. I was still overweight. I still didn't exercise. I still drank all the time. I was still doing heavy drugs. I was still smoking weed. I was still smoking cigarettes. But yet I was on these pills and I was like up in dosage, up and up and dosage, up and it's like, hold on a second. Like I haven't sorted out any of this stuff. I'm still doing all this stuff. Maybe I should like cut out that stuff and also the pills and then see how I feel. And if I manage to get all of that stuff and I still don't feel better, then maybe I should think about using pills. I think it's like so common that it's like, oh, there's a pill for that. It's like, yeah, you're still overweight, you still don't exercise, you still smoke cigarettes, you still do drugs. It's like maybe sort that shit out first. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation of like big pharma and like pushing medication and prescriptions because it makes money, and it makes that whole circle churn. But I was actually in the same exact boat. So I think it was the end of my freshman year of high school. I just put myself through this whirlwind of anxiety and depression, honestly, from smoking weed. I just like I smoked this stuff that we had over here called K2. I heard all this stuff about us putting holes in kids' brains, and I just sent myself into an absolute anxiety attack. And then from there, I was like disassociating. I went on these pills, and it lasted until I think freshman year of college. And I did the same exact thing. I was like, I started working out. That's what happened. And
Yeah,
I was like, I don't need this. And exactly, it wasn't helping me at all. It was masking everything. And I think that's why I won class clown. I am very outgoing normally. Those pills made me not care. I generally don't now. I don't care about like things I say, and like if I look stupid or whatever, I
yeah,
almost
yeah,
like lean into that. But when I was younger, I hated that, and those pills just made me numb. So it was like, oh, I'm gonna be the biggest clown because I don't feel anything. I don't care.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's
but yeah,
interesting.
and then yeah, I found working out, and it was like, wait, this makes me feel better than feeling numb. Why don't I just do this thing? And yeah, exactly that. Like you said, you hit it on the head, where it's bigger than just us, and like it's bigger than the psychiatrist or whatever it is that even prescribes the medication. It's a whole, I believe, a whole backbone infrastructure of like money, and
Yeah.
that's what unfortunately drives a lot of things.
I would highly recommend to anybody who listens to this to read the book Lost Connections. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
I've not even probably read it. Like Ems has probably read it, and it's like it's same with her. Like she did the exact thing. She was on medication, all this stuff. Read this book and was like, hold on a second. Like this could not be right. Like, and she came off them and like the exact same experience as the two of us. I think.
It's so important, and obviously I met Emily as well, and that's kind of the next thing I want to hit on is like just relationships. And I've been talking to everybody about this because I'm dead single,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm having fun, and I'm building community, and I'm having a great time. But it's one of those things that's obviously, I'm 28. A lot of my friends are in their 30s, and we're all kind of in this spot where it's just like kind of waiting for something to happen there. And I met you two, and you guys are like awesome. You're aligned, and it just seems like supporting and growing on the same path. And it's what I'm looking for. So how did you kind of cultivate that, and what's the story with you and Emily?
yeah. So. I suppose it's a super interesting one because it's kind of like a discussion that we kind of had with you about it, which was that for me, I'd been through a certain amount of relationships, And I got to a stage where I was like like as I said, when I met her, I thought I was like the perfect me. I thought I was like the most me I was ever gonna be. I was like really sorted my stuff out, like I was on the right path. Um, but I knew exactly what it was that I wanted. And I don't mean like you should have like a list of exactly what you want, because tough tits, like that's just not going to happen. Like that's just not how life works. And when I met Emily, she ran 5Ks. That was her thing. She did a bit of running. She was into fitness. She was really into mindset, meditation, stuff like that. I was kind of into mindset, meditation, but I was really into running. She was kind of into running, but really into mindset. So we were like kind of a little bit different, but we'd been through very similar experiences with regards to mental health, super similar. Um, and we just like hit it off. We just hit it off, and I met her about 3 months before I was doing the 32 challenge. And we started pretty much. I met her on a Monday. She contracted COVID on the Tuesday. I saw her again on that Friday or Saturday when she tested negative again. And pretty much from that day, we've been going out. And she came around. She drove the car for my challenge. We had like a little Ford Fiesta and the bike on the back, and we drove the whole way around to every county of Ireland. Um, and she kind of saw me do that, and she was like, "Shit!" Like she ran her first half marathon during that time, with me on one of the days in Dublin, and she was just like, watching me do something was like, "Oh, well, I can do things like this." And then a couple of weeks later, I ran a marathon. She was like, "I'd like to run a marathon," and we booked running a marathon. And I think one of the things that's really like hit home with me is that, um, like you don't just meet a person and like you automatically have this like perfect life together. That's just like it just doesn't work that way. But what does happen is you meet someone who connects with you on a certain level, and you have very similar values or life experience, and you build a life together. It's just not going to just land on your lap. And there's some days, and it's actually really interesting, which is that like I think two people as a relationship should be 100%. So it's like 50-50. But some days I'm running at 70 and she's running at 30. And some days I'm running at she's running at 70 and I'm running at 30 because I've had a long day at work or whatever it is. Some days are like 70-30. I can't remember exactly the lady that said it, but it was on Diary of a CEO. I don't know if that's a podcast that you listen to.
Yeah, Stephen
But
Bartlett.
yeah, Stephen Bartlett, yeah. So this lady was talking about how her and her husband, when they come in, they're like, sometimes they don't need to say it. They're like, we're 50-50, whatever. Um, but sometimes I'll come in and I'll be like, literally, it's like, I'm shattered. I'm completely done. Like, I don't want to go training. I don't want to do XYZ. Don't want to cook. She's like, okay, sweet. You lie down there. I'll do this, have a little rest for a little while, and we'll go out and we'll get a walk in, or we'll go to the gym, or whatever it is that needs doing. And sometimes we both come in and we're both running on 20. We're both both shattered, we're both in bits. And then we have to sit down and be like, okay, how do we move forward so that there isn't an issue and we're not, I suppose, at each other's necks because we're both tired, overwhelmed, whatever it is. And the other thing is like clear conversation. It is the ability to have that conversation with your partner, and be open. And like for example, like there's sometimes that Emily will talk to me about something, and I will listen and I will hear it and I will say, I I can't actually fully understand where you're coming from, and maybe it's like something that's like more personal to her, like an issue that she's having, like something that she's dealing with, and I can listen to her and hear her out. It's like I have to then be honest with her and be like, I'm not the right person for you to talk to about this particular issue, and here's why, and vice versa. She does the exact same for me. And obviously there is some things within our relationship that we can't talk about and I can't help her with and yada yada yada. But there's also things like that she might be dealing with from like her past or whatever it is that I actually can't help with. And I can hear her out and I can be a sounding board, but I don't feel comfortable to give advice because I might not understand it and I don't want to say the wrong thing. And that's totally fine too. And if you can be able to articulate with your other half, with your partner, as to why that is, so that one, they feel heard, but two, they don't feel like dismissed, or that you don't want to hear them. I think that's really important. And empathy. Empathy is like there's a difference between empathy and pity, right? Um, and empathy is very important. It's actually something that I struggle with. For example, right? If I was to see somebody that is maybe like overweight, right? I struggle to have empathy for that person as to why they are overweight. Because for me, I'm like, I've been overweight, da da da, you have to try, yada yada yada. But if I sat down with that person who is overweight and they were to tell me, uh, look, I've had struggle, I've just been through a breakup, or my parents have passed away, and yada yada yada, I would then in that moment be able to have empathy for that person. But like, I can't have empathy straight off the bat. It's something I really struggle with. It's something I'm just not good at. It's something I'm trying to get better at. Because I think empathy is so important and pity is very dangerous.
So true. Yeah. And again, you touched on a lot there, and I'm dead single. But I always say I think the three most important things in any relationship are just consistency, clarity, and communication. And with that, you can nail everything, and
Yeah.
you have everything you need. And the cool thing with you guys too, like you mentioned, is that she was at first more on like the growth mindset, and you were more on the fitness end, and you guys kind of helped each other bridge that gap. So it's so interesting having someone that's into different things because then you get to learn those things. And I
Yeah,
think it's really
for
unique.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like exactly that. Like she's brought so many things into my routine, let's say, that I probably would have never done. Like, I'm not gonna lie, dyslexic, shit at reading, never used to read. I've read a couple of books now, like Wim Hof, Start with Why, Atomic Habits, like all these different things. Started reading them. Really good one is the Marshmallow Test. Don't know if you've ever read that. It's
I've heard of
absolutely
it.
phenomenal. Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's unbelievable. It talks about it talks about willpower and how it's actually a muscle and how you can build it rather than you would, and it goes through the whole study around this marshmallow test. It's phenomenal. um but uh that is something that I am building at the moment, which is willpower. Like it is a muscle that I'm consistently using. um but like, to bring it back to, like, I suppose, relationship, like, there is so much that I've brought to Ems and Ems has brought to me, and um, it's it's pretty good so far. So yeah,
Yeah,
happy out.
that's awesome. Yeah, meeting you guys, you could tell, and it's cool. And it's awesome that it is, like you said, it's like two people coming together for growth, not one person leaning on the other or not one person taking away from the other. It's
Yeah,
it's the goal for sure. Um,
yeah, 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 for sure.
and then just to piggyback off that, who would you say has had the biggest impact on you?
Um, Me, I know that that's going to maybe sound a little bit different, but I've probably had the biggest impact on myself. Um, Outside of that, my mum. But the reason why I say me, and I'm not trying to be like big headed or anything like that. It's like nobody else did what I like. Nobody else can do it for you. You have to be the biggest impact on yourself. Like, if you're searching for motivation every day, guess what? You're not gonna fucking get anywhere.
True.
Like, it's discipline. It is showing up. It is doing shit that you don't want to do as if you love it. I stole that from Mike Tyson, but that's literally what it is. It is you, you can't you can have people who are aspirational to you, like my mum. I love my mum, but like, she couldn't do this stuff for me. So how, like, you have to be the biggest impact on yourself. You can't be looking for other people to be the biggest impact, because they can't be. They can't do it for you. You have to do it. Like, I'm sick. Oh, I need like motivation to do something. She's like, shut up. Like, just
True.
fucking do it. Like, seriously. Um, so I don't know if that's like the right answer to your question, because I'm sure there's people like, oh, my dad is like but like, no, I would say myself.
So that's a real answer, and I totally agree with you. And it's It's so true. It really is. And I know what you mean. And it's just kind of like you're the only one that's been through everything you've been through. And you're the only one that can get you to where you want to go. So yeah, it kind of, you're right. Like it almost, it's a real answer. Like it has to be you. It's true.
Yeah, yeah. You literally can't get somebody else to do it for you. So you've got to be the biggest impact on yourself.
Yeah. It's awesome. And lastly, I ask everybody, what keeps you going? Like what's your deep why?
Something that I'm working on at the moment. It's something that I'm trying to work through at the moment in my own head. It's a good question. Um, and it's I don't know, like that's a really tough one for me because it's like I'm currently working through it. I don't think it's something now though. Do you know, like I
Mhm.
don't think it's something that I don't think it's now. I think realistically I'm doing everything now for the future that I don't know what that future holds. So like I'm doing what I'm doing now for my kids or my kids' kids, if that makes sense. Maybe that's my why. I'm still yet to kind of really figure out what that is. I know it's something that's like super important. Like, oh, what's your why? It's like, okay, I suppose my why is that I want to meet new people. I want to build a social enterprise. I want to raise awareness for mental health for young people. Like they're all fine, but like realistically, like what is my long-term why? It's probably to do it for my kids, to do it for like to do it for the family that I don't yet have, because I want to be I want to be around for as long as I possibly can. I want to be as healthy as I possibly can. I don't want to be out of breath going up the stairs with my kids. I want to be able to run around with them and pick them up and throw them around and do everything that I need to do to be the best father that I can possibly be to my kids. And with that, I also want to be the best grandfather I can possibly be to their kids. Um, and I think that's my why, because you get one shot at all that. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people why it's so funny. It's like, oh, like sometimes kids, like grandkids, have really good relationships with their grandparents, even though the parents in between don't have really good relationships with their own parents, right? And I think half of the reason for that is because the grandparents, when they get to an older age, realize, I didn't do all this stuff for my kids. Now I'm going to do it for my grandkids. It's like, I don't want to make that mistake. I want to be there for all of them. I want to be as good as I can for everybody in my life. Um, and I heard another analogy, and it's like, if you get a tissue paper and you grab the middle of it and you pull it up, the edges come with it. And if you think about the edge, like one edge is like your kids, and the other edge is your partner, and the other edge is your friends, and the other edge is, I don't know, people that you work with. And if you lift up the middle, which is yourself, you're bringing all the edges with you. And I think that's maybe my why. I want to bring everybody with me. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a really good answer to your question or not. It's something that I'm trying to understand myself a little bit at the moment, to be honest, man.
I think it's a great answer. And I think you hear a lot of times like the cliche answers. And I think a lot of your answers are just real, which I appreciate. And I think that's also one that like it's allowed to change because I've had a lot of answers to that question. A lot of them have also been cliche myself. But my current one is similar to what you're saying. It's like just building community. Because I could see, and it's even if like I know through that my sister's going to get affected, my mom's going to get affected by it, but just building a bigger community and letting people see like there aren't limits to this. Like the only limits we set are in our minds. Of course, there are physical limits as far as like I'm not going to play in. I know you guys don't have the NFL, but the National Football League, not built for it. But
Yeah.
I can run 100 miles. I run 200 miles. Like and whatever that unlocks for the next person is why I did it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I literally I think it was like a couple of weeks before I went over to New York, or maybe it was after. Can't remember. But I was running and I get like my clarity of mind when I run, like my like pure just ideas come into my head about like what I feel. And one of them is around limitations. And it was that so many people in life put limitations on themselves before even trying to do something. And that goes for every walk of life, right? That goes for like their job. That goes for what they consume food wise. Oh, I can't eat that healthy because I don't know how to cook. Or, but you've never tried to cook, so how do you know you can't eat that healthy? I can't do that course in university because I'm not smart enough. It's like you haven't tried, you haven't got in there, you haven't read any books, you haven't done any papers, you haven't done anything. How do you know? Like I can't do a half marathon because I've never ran before. It's like, okay, well, like, don't like people really, really need to stop putting limitations on themselves. You have absolutely no fucking idea what your limitations are until you try. So like why put them on yourself? It's like I'm setting out to do this challenge, right? Which is 100K a day for 55 days. It would be naive for me to think that uh, I'm absolutely 100% going to do it, right? Okay. In my head, I think, yeah, that's possible 100%. Um, and maybe I don't complete the 5,500 kilometers in 60 days. Maybe I just don't do it. Like Ned Brockman, um, was running across Australia there last year. He wanted to do it in 55 days. He didn't do it in 55 days. He did it in, I don't know, 57, 58 or whatever it was. Maybe he wanted to do it in 50 days and he did it in 55. Doesn't matter. Like, are we knocking that up as a failure? I don't really know. Like, what do we do? Like, what are we doing? Like, maybe I don't do it. Maybe I don't. But like, I'm gonna have a fucking crack off it and see if it happens. And if I fail, I fail. Big deal. Like, life is accumulation of failures. That's it. Like, you get up, you brush yourself down, you move on. It's like everyone. That's such an issue that what we have in society at the moment is that everyone only shows the wins. Everyone's like showing just the win. It's like no one ever shows, or no one really shows all the L's that they had to accumulate to get the W, and it's shitloads. It's shitloads of wins. Like that is life. It is losing and losing and losing and failing and failing and failing and dusting yourself off and going again. That's life. Like that's it. And if you think it isn't, you're gonna go nowhere. End of story.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's, have you heard of Men in the Arena?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's that. And and I'm with you, I rather fail and be in the arena than be in the stands and always wonder what if. And that's just how I live life.
Yeah. I've got a question for you. Do you ever so the two things on this. Alex Armrosi had actually said these two of these things, which is one, we should demolish the word should. Totally agree on that. Like you should be doing this and you should be like shut up. Like I'll do whatever I want. Um but the other one is that I don't know if you I think about this a lot, and that's death. I don't like it's pretty morbid, like it's a pretty shit thing to think about. But one of the things that always comes into my head is like, let's say, well, one, tomorrow isn't promised. So like anything could happen. I could be cycling my bike to work tomorrow and I could end up in a crash. I've been knocked off my bike twice in London. So it could easily happen. But if I got to 70, 80, 90 years old, do I want to look back at my life and go, I wish I did. I wish I did 32 half Ironmans and 32 days. I wish I tried to run 100K a day, 55 days. It's like, no, I want to turn around and go, I I did. I did do it. I don't like, and that's one of maybe that's another why. Maybe I feel like you can have a number of different whys, is my thing.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, you might have like this umbrella of a why, and maybe my umbrella of a why is that, or this overarching umbrella of a why that I have is that I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like on my deathbed and be like, oh, I wish I did that, or have any regrets about not doing something or not trying something or not seeing a particular place.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, do you think about death a lot?
I
I
do.
don't know, like
I
you
do.
do.
Yeah. And I do as you do. I do it from that 80, 90, 100-year-old version of myself and being like, okay, well, especially when it comes to finances, I feel like where it's like, I could go on this trip or I could save this money. And it's like, when I'm 90, is this $5,000? Is this $2,000? Is this $3,000 gonna matter? Or the experience of running the Grand Canyon, is that going to be the cooler thing that I'll want when I'm that age? And if you live like that, you tend to lean towards just do the thing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I definitely do. And I think that's also like a unique, if you frame life from like the 90-year-old version of yourself, I think you're gonna make those decisions that come with that fine line of like delayed gratification or experience. I think that helps you reframe everything.
Yeah. Like I genuinely don't think anyone remembers anybody for the money that they made.
Yeah.
No, like
Yeah.
the graveyard is the biggest bank because so many people die with their money, but like so what? Like I've literally having this conversation with Ems on the walk earlier on. It was like, would you rather make, I don't know, 100K or 200K and be completely on your own time with like as in you can pick your kids up from school, you can drop them off, you can do whatever it is that you want to do with them. You can go on, your couple of holidays a year or whatever. Or would you rather be locked in to be a partner in some major law firm and literally get paid, I don't know, maybe mil point five a year, but have a nanny look after your kids? Like it for me, it's like a no brainer. It's like give me the 200K. Like realistically, when I get to an older age, it's like all those that time that I put into my kids and built that relationship with my grandkids and my kids and built community around me is going to be way more valuable than the one the mill that I made a year. Like yeah, for me it's just baffling.
So true. And yeah, and honestly, man, I really, really appreciate your time. And I want to say, I know I don't know if I even mentioned it because my mind was all over the place. Like, you really helped get me through that race. Like I know it was like brief communication, but I was at like the end, and bro, I was fucking hurting. And I just want to say, like, I met you one day in New York City, but I really appreciate you even taking the time to send some messages. It really means a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Like I was like watching you do, it and I was like, this guy. It's like
Yeah,
I have to get on board this shit. Like, it's so nice to make connection with people like that, though. I find, like, do
absolutely. And yeah.
you know what I mean? Like two absolute dogs going after it. Like, fucking yeah, 100%.